Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, February 15th in the year of 2022. And welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom, brought to you by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Well, we continue to celebrate February's Black History Month. We started on February 1 with a stirring interview with federal judge U.W. Clement. We learned a lot, and quite frankly, he was inspiring. We hope sometime down the road to have the judge back on and share some more of his wisdom with us. Thank you, Judge Clements. February is the month of love. In addition to being Black History Month, I hope you were good to somebody you love, and I hope somebody you love was good to you and you had a happy Valentine's Day and you shared the love. Last week, Lisa Luttrell from Atlanta, Georgia, with us about founding her company, Honey Blossom Sweets and Treats. Lisa shared her own personal history when she decided to leave the teaching profession and take the entrepreneurial plunge and start her own business. Last week, we also shared the story of Coach Jim Hillier and his role in Black history. He's signing Auburn's first Black football player. Jim, of course, is not Black, but we should all have learned by now that history intersects us all. And it's only when we deny that fact that we repeat the same mistakes. At least that's my opinion. Next week, David Palladino, an actor and friend from Los Angeles, California, will join us. David has an interesting Black history story, one that many Americans of mixed blood share in the United States. And today we will hear from Eric Simmons in Atlanta, Georgia, as our G-List guest. Eric, or Butch, as many of us call him, will talk about his website design business. And in doing so, we will get into a subject that we will be discussing throughout the year, and that is the historic legal case of the Scottsboro Boys trial and the new legal institute and museum that is coming to Decatur, Alabama. Eric Simmons is designing that website that will bring that case to the forefront of history. And as I said, we will be talking about that subject throughout the year and maybe for a couple of years to come. So again, the G-List guest for today is Eric Simmons. And the G-List, of course, is sponsored by Mainstream Financial. Mainstream Financial brings financial vision and clarity to your retirement plans. Talk to the folks at Mainstream Financial, because you don't want your money to run out before you do. This edition of Tuesdays with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl has been providing customized solutions to executive issues for 34 years. Let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development
that fits your needs. And I also want to add, when we talk about Best Girl's team of consultants, I want to add Valton Johnson to that list. We haven't put Valton up there yet, but he has joined us, and we will get you up there, Valton, very soon, hopefully before the next show. So let's get to our roundtable regulars and introduce Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace Edwards is a Mobile, Alabama native currently living in Birmingham. I guess she's in Birmingham today. Who knows? Barbara, how are you today?
Good morning, Thom. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Are you at home?
I'm home. Yes, I am.
Man, they must have really gotten on that and fixed that thing, huh?
Yes, things are working well. So 4 weeks in a row, I think I've been home now. So yeah, it's working great.
So what's happening with you, Barbara? What's going on in your world?
Well, Thom, I want to first start by thanking everyone for the birthday greetings and birthday wishes and phone calls. Thanks to my sister, Lori Wallace, who I think led a campaign. I received over 2,000 voicemails, text messages, Facebook posts, messenger posts, wishing me a happy 65th birthday. She said her goal was for me to receive 65. Well, I think she exceeded that goal, way exceeded that goal.
Good for her.
So it was a great birthday on Sunday.
Oh, good deal. That's great. Yes. So I know that you are follow Auburn religiously. So tell us what's going on. There was a lot going on up until about a week or so ago, and now they've gone radio silent. So.
Everything's quiet down on the plains right now, Tom. As you know, and I'm not sure if our viewers are aware or not, but Coach Harsin will remain as the head coach of the Auburn football program for at least another year. We pray that he's there longer. But the announcement came out on Friday that the decision has been made after investigations of whatever they did, research, background work, he's going to remain in that position. So I think that's good for our program, at least right now. And I had an opportunity to go down to Auburn on Saturday for the basketball game.
Okay.
After losing to Arkansas on last Tuesday, our basketball team came back to life and beat Texas A&M by a pretty good, sizable score. I don't remember exactly what the score was, but great game on Saturday. Congratulations to Coach Pearl and the team.
Okay, sounds good. And you know, Auburn always has to have a little controversy every 2 or 3 years in the athletic department. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter who the coach is or who the athletic director is. We're going to have a little controversy.
Absolutely.
And, so hopefully they'll get it straightened out, I guess.
I hope so. I do hope so. Coach Harsin was at the basketball game on Saturday, shaking hands and kissing babies. So.
Well, he probably needs to do that after you lose 9 coaches and 20-something players. You might need to kiss a few babies.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay. Well, let's get the vacation man on. Michael Walker. Michael, of course, is in Atlanta, Georgia. And Michael was off last week, had a little vacation last week. Michael, how are you?
Good morning, Tom. I'm doing well. Good morning to you, Barbara. I hope you both are doing well today.
Good morning.
Yeah, well, how was your week off?
Well, it was enjoyable. I would say I did a lot of relaxation and, just unplugged and did some downtime. I don't even think I watched any news while I was on vacation. So
news doesn't allow you to rest. So it just kind of spins things up.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. I spent some time in Hawaii, on the big island of Hawaii, in the city of Kona. Interesting fact about that island is that it's supposed to be the size of Connecticut, but it only has 200,000, a population of 200,000 there, where Connecticut has close to 1.2 million people. Wow. And, rumored not to have any snakes on the island. I'm not quite so sure that is the case, but that's what we were told, that they try to eradicate and get rid of all snakes that are there. So, and they said no raccoons, no possums, different things like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Found that pretty interesting.
Did you go out on the water?
Yeah, I went to several beaches. The beaches are great. The thing about the Hawaiian Islands as a whole, and especially the Big Island, wherever you go, the backdrop is the Pacific Ocean. So you have different parts of the beach to go to, and they have probably a beach every few miles, every 2 or 3 miles, some side by side. So there was a lot. Now I saw a black sand beach there, as a matter of fact. So
black sand on the beach?
Yes, yes. There was a little stretch of beach where it was black sand.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So you say they don't have possums, they don't have whatever. What kind of animals do they have there?
Well, they have some wild pigs there for sure.
Okay.
Where we're staying, they call them feral pigs.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of funny. So when there's a guy that live up on the mountain, and then when the people down below catch pigs, they call him. He come down and get them and take them back up and get them all fattened up and everything, and then come back and sell them for the luau's. So,
Wow.
so I thought that was pretty funny. But
That
there's
is.
some really interesting tidbits, and I can't even begin to say his name, but the guy that was the original king of the Big Island, he wanted to overtake Maui, which you can see Maui from the shores of Hawaii. As probably you can see, Hawaii from Maui, but he wanted to take over that island. And what he and his warriors did, they invited the king of Maui and his people over for a feast. And they came across the waters, and I'm told it's like 21 miles that separates Maui from Hawaii. And they came over and they had a big feast and everything. And then they ambushed the people so that he could take over Maui. And that's what he did. I just happened to go to his birthplace. There's a section of the Big Island that has that there, along with a place where they had sacrifices and what have you, which was supposedly the place where all this happened.
Interesting.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You gonna say something?
No,
I was going to ask Michael, curious about the COVID protocol there. Was it very strict? How was that?
Well, on your flight over, you had to upload your card along with your ID that, detail when you receive your shots and what have you. And you had to go through this questionnaire, and then they would in turn would check out everything and then send you back like a QR code that you would download from your phone or take a picture of.
Okay.
And send that over to Hawaii ahead of time. But if you didn't get your QR code, then that was probably a problem, or, you needed to do a little further work in order to be cleared. But once you go into the mainland and land, before they let you off the plane, you got to show them your QR code, and they have to double check and look at your ID to see if that matches. And if so, then you're allowed to go through. And they're real strict about bringing anything in. They want to make sure you were not bringing any snakes in. That was one of the things that was on the card was, are there any pet snakes in your luggage, and different other types of animals that they do not want in.
Right.
And so they were checking that. So you have to go through, and your bags go through what's called the agricultural station, and that's where they're looking for all of that stuff.
Wow.
And then you're cleared. And then after that, you go. The funny thing is that most of the restaurants there are open air restaurants. And, Tom, you love it. Nobody wears long pants. It's shorts and T-shirts all the time, flip-flops. I didn't see anybody hardly the whole time I was there with long pants on, or even their restaurants is shorts and flip-flops. But as I was saying, most of it is open air. And so you have to put a mask on to go into the restaurant. Then once you're seated, you can take your mask off. But if you get up to go to the restroom or any movement, you have to put your mask back on.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's just, since you brought it up, I went shopping and got me some new flip-flops the other day for the summer. I wear flip-flops in the summer, the winter, whenever. And so I had gotten this one pair that I really liked. I said, well, if I don't go over there and get them before the spring, they're going to be all gone. So I ran over there the other day to get them, but I didn't find, but I did get some new ones. I kind of got them on. I got them on now. So I'm back in the flip-flop business. And I will tell you this, I flew to Los Angeles, which was, I think, the first time I've flown since the COVID. And we did have to show our vaccination card as well as our ID. And what have you. But then it came to the fact that, I didn't get the, whatever it is, I forgot what they call it now. I haven't flown so long. But they told me to take my shoes off. And I said, I don't mind taking my shoes off at all. I'm not trying to cause any problem, but I just had knee replacement surgery, and I have to get somebody to help me put my right shoe back on. So if you guys are going to help me put my shoe back on, I'll go ahead and take it off. And they said, well, no, wait a minute. And so they screened my shoes on my feet, and didn't make me take them off. So, and I was glad, because man, that's in this process with the knee replacement. That's one of the last things I've got to conquer, is getting my right shoe on. I can get the left one on, but the right shoe is a little tough. So that was my flying story. And I wanted to
listen to you. I'm glad that they did listen and take that into consideration.
Well, I don't think they wanted to put them back, have to put them back home. So, and I just, for you guys' information and talking about Auburn and stuff, but I did run into, you guys, I'm sure remember Damian Craig. I ran into Damian Craig in the Houston airport on the way back, and we had a good talk. He talked about his desire to perhaps one day coach at Auburn. And I personally think he'd be great.
Absolutely.
I know one thing, he's a hell of a recruiter, and we obviously are going to need some recruiters.
Right.
After that,
I actually saw on Facebook yesterday, there's a sort of a campaign saying that, requesting that Damian Craig be hired as the offensive coordinator. So I think some of the fans are actually pushing for that. So hopefully they've reached out to Coach Harsin and others there at Auburn, and maybe we'll see some action along those lines. At least he'll get a call, hopefully.
Well, I won't go into detail, but he did get a call, and this was before he and I met. And at that point in time, nothing had materialized from that call. So maybe your group needs to step it up.
Yes, I will mention that.
So maybe y'all need to step it up a little bit.
A little bit.
We'll see. Michael, you got anything else for us?
I got a little bit of happy news, I guess you could say, with President Biden's Build Back Better plan. Look like there are going to be some positive impacts on people that are on original Medicare and people that are turning 65. In 2023, they hope to expand original Medicare to cover hearing aids and also hearing loss and hearing treatment. And the price would be, Medicare would pay 80%, and the beneficiary would only have to pay 20%. And that's starting in 2023. Also in 2024, they're looking to limit the cost of prescription drugs from the standpoint of putting a cap on it on an annual basis, starting at $2,000. They didn't say how far up the cap would be, but it is to stop the onslaught of price increases. And that would start in 2024. And then in 2025, they want to implement what they call smoothing out of out-of-pocket costs. Sometimes during the year, Medicare costs will rise sharply, and then the beneficiaries will have to pay it all at one time. They want to make this so that you can spread it out over a year and not be impacted as much. So those are a couple of good things coming from Build Back Better. And there's even talk that even if Build Back Better stalls in the legislative process, these two items may have enough strength to stand on their own, because it could be bipartisan relationship. A bipartisan legislation, and a lot of people will be certainly in favor of that.
That'd be great.
Bipartisan anything would be good.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, Barbara, what about you? You got anything else for us?
I don't think so, Tom. I think that's all I have.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to Got a Minute. You got a minute? And then Sean's got a message if you've got a minute. So let's hear from Sean and her Got a Minute.
Good morning. My name is Sean Jones, and this week's Got a Minute is saying hello to Black History Month. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in U.S. history. Fun fact, in 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. Other countries around the world, including Canada and the United Kingdom, also devote a month to celebrating Black history. On this day, February 15th, 2011, American poet, author, actress, filmmaker, educator, and civil rights activist Maya Angelou was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. Got a Minute's quote of the day is, "Won't it be wonderful when Black history and Native American history and Jewish history and all of the U.S. history is taught from one book, just U.S. history." Maya Angelou. Thank you for joining in. My name is Sean Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
Thank you, Sean. Very nice. We appreciate it. Okay. Let's see. Where are we? We're at the G list, I think. The G list is where everybody is a star. It's sponsored by Mainstream Financial. So let's hear from Mainstream.
Mainstream Financial Group provides financial services for both individuals and businesses. Mainstream's mission is to understand the unique needs of every client and work closely with you, assembling a team to develop and manage your resources to help you accomplish your defined financial goals. Mainstream's financial professionals will provide you with a complimentary, no obligation financial review. Now, these professionals can then offer you custom advice to mend together the pieces of your financial life and come up with a plan that is truly comprehensive. Mainstream Financial assists retirees and those close to retirement in planning for a secure retirement so not to run out of money during your lifetime. You can take advantage of opportunities with tailored advice and the resources to act on it. Mainstream Financial Group, www.mainstreamfg.com, 205-324-0589.
Mainstream Financial Group. Don't let your money run out before you do. So let's get to our G list guest for today. Remember, Hollywood has the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Tom, we have the G list, where everybody is a star. Today's G list guest is Eric Simmons. Eric is a web designer, a business owner, former Fortune 500 business person, and Eric is working on a project that we're going to talk about today concerning the CEO of Scottsboro Boys Museum. Eric, how are you, man?
Hey, good morning, Tom.
What's going on with you?
Oh, well, I'm excited to be with you again, and I wanted to share with Barbara. She can tell her sister 2001. To make that 2001 people to wish you, in my case, a happy belated birthday.
Okay. I want to go back just for a minute. Lori Wallace, who is Barbara's sister, says that we mentioned Damian Craig. Damian Craig is a personal friend of hers. They worked together some years ago. He's a great guy. Well, it's good to know. And hopefully Damian is tuning in and gets to know that. So, Butch, tell us about this project you're working on.
Well, for the viewers, back in early December, Tom actually reached out to me and was telling me about a project regarding the Scottsboro Boys Ciota Civil Rights Museum located in Decatur, Alabama, or to be in Decatur, Alabama. And I said, yeah, I think this would be a website project I would be interested in pursuing. Well, when I got involved with the project, I had no idea the magnitude of the Scottsboro Boys and their story. And as I began to educate myself on what happened, I became vested, if you will, in the project. And one of the things that I wanted to do was try to bring this incredible story to life for people through the website that I've been asked to develop for the organization.
Can you give us a little bit of the Scottsboro Boys story?
Sure, I'll be glad to.
And I'll pitch in with you as we go.
Sure. For those that aren't aware, the Scottsboro Boys were 9 teenagers, and they were hoboing on a train headed toward Memphis, Tennessee. And a fight broke out between some of the boys and some of the white hobos on the train. And incredibly, the whites, I guess, were thrown off the train, and they reported to a local sheriff that some blacks had pulled a gun on them and beat them and whatnot. And so at the next stop, a posse was waiting to arrest. Well, actually, it was a lynch mob. They were going to take these blacks off the train. And so at random, 9 black teenagers aged 12 through 19 were taken off of the train. Well, there were also 3 other people taken off, and they were white, and turns out 2 of them were women. And the women, the older woman, she was about 21 years old, name was Victoria Price. She realized that she and her friend could be put in jail for prostitution and being vagrants. So she came up with this story that these 9, well, she actually said 12 blacks had raped them both. And so by the time these boys had been hurt, where they got roped, and they were put on a truck and taken to Scottsboro, Alabama. And they became known as the Scottsboro 9. And so there were a series of trials that were held. These boys on multiple occasions had been tried to be executed at the Kilby prison in Alabama, and what they call Yellow Mama. That was the electric chair. But through the appeals process, fortunately, these trials drug out over time. And what's significant about some of the trials was that in 2 cases, the U.S. Supreme Court intervened. They stayed 2 of the trials, and one of the outcomes was, per the 14th Amendment, people should have the right to a fair trial. And the Supreme Court felt that in one of the initial trials, these boys did not have adequate legal representation. And then the second landmark decision that the Supreme Court made was that blacks could serve on juries. And back then in Jackson County, to people's knowledge, to black people's knowledge in particular, there had never been a black juror associated with a trial in Jackson County. Now, as this trial unfolded, some incredible things happened. First was one of the doctors that cared for the girls after they'd gotten off the train testified that sperm that was found in them was dead and had been dead for at least 12 to 14 hours. So that basically implied there was no way they could have been raped by these boys. And then another thing that happened was one of the girls, Ruby Bates, later became a defense witness, and she testified that the girls had not been raped. Now, despite this information to prove these boys' innocence through multiple trials, at each trial, they were convicted to be executed. But fortunately, even after
the woman recanted her story.
Even after the woman recanted her story. And so over time, these boys eventually became pardoned. But what the story, and you don't hear about, is I wonder what happened to them while they were incarcerated. I mean, the beatings, they alluded to some of the beatings, but I can't imagine the horror that must have gone on while they were in jail or in prison.
And this was
that's a little backdrop for you.
1930s, right? 1930s.
Yes.
I think 1931.
The boys were arrested in March of 1931.
Yeah. And so what's happening in Decatur, and what Eric is building a website on, is there is going to be a museum and legal institute built in Decatur. Why in Decatur? Because the subsequent trials were held in Decatur, Alabama. And the women lived in this house that has been preserved there, to be a part of this basically civil rights district, and also the judge's house. The judge who eventually freed the young man, I think Haywood Patterson.
Right.
Basically, Judge Horton, basically just said, hey, this guy, he wasn't guilty of anything. So anyway, it's a great story. If you are familiar with Decatur, I'm sure it's going to be a few years before everything is built out or whatever. But Eric's working on this website, and you're welcome to go to it. Eric, you may want to tell them where it is, and we're soliciting donations at this time, contributions. It should be exciting time for the city of Decatur.
Right. And so, Thom, the website is sbcmuseum.org. I'm still in the process of developing it. We've got some fine tuning and tweaking to do, and got some board approvals in front of us, but the project is progressing. And it's and to your earlier point, it's going to be a 3-phased scenario. And this is the way the website will also evolve as each phase occurs. Phase 1 being the renovation of the boarding house, which Thom mentioned, where one or more of the accusers were staying during one of the trials. And then the second phase is the building of a multi-million-dollar landmark museum adjacent to the boarding house. And then phase 3 is they're going to physically move George Horton's house from a residence outside of Decatur. They're going to move it and relocate it onto the property, as I understand, in Decatur. So there'll be 3 phases, and consequently the website will evolve with each of those phases. The first phase, one of the things I tried to do, I had received 128 still photos from the Morgan County archivist, John Allison. And as I looked at all of these photos, I tried to figure out a way to make them come to life, if you will, on the website. And so what I've done is I've got a sequential film-like video of the boys as they are incarcerated in Kilby Prison to the time that they're taken out of the paddy wagon and being led into the Decatur courthouse through the rear door to keep the mob that had assembled from attacking them, even though there were National Guardsmen on site. And then I take you into the courtroom, and you can begin to see the trial unfold. So that is a piece. We'll show 30 seconds of it, if you don't mind, Emily, to give viewers just a little bit of an idea of the photos. I think the music is on mute. And this is where they're going through the rear of the courthouse to enter, with National Guard in tow. So that video will have background music associated with it. Originally, I tried to get Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come," but trying to get the rights to that got to be a little bit complicated. And so we've got some other music that we're going to use to kind of build up the momentum from a somber state into one of ultimate triumph, so to speak, by the boys being pardoned.
I think one thing I'll go back and just clear up. Phase 1 will be the house where Ruby Bates supposedly lived. Phase 2 will be Judge Horton's house, and phase 3 will be the new building that they will build. And as I said earlier, the site's not ready yet, so you can't make your contributions today, but we will let you know when you can. Let's get Michael and Barbara on. I know they got some questions for you, Butch, and I know you got a bunch more information. People are going to get confused because I call you Eric, Butch, Flea, whatever. So
I've got a number of nicknames.
Barbara, you're up.
Thank you, Thom, and good morning to you, Butch. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Good morning, Barbara and War Eagle.
The War Eagle, and thank you for those birthday wishes. I appreciate that very much. I want to mention that I visited that website yesterday regarding the museum there, and it was so emotional for me. Just going back and reading through the story and looking at the pictures, and it brought me to tears. So I just want to know from you and Thom, how did that feel when you got involved with this project and started working on it? You know, because you delved into it a lot deeper than I did just going to the website. It had to be very emotional for you as well, going back through all of that.
When I received 128 photos from John Allison, the archivist at Morgan County, and they brought me to tears. And I found myself vested in this project. And I said to myself, maybe that was why Thom reached out to me, because he knew if I saw that, I was going to be all in. And it was so moving. I just wanted to take those photos and try to find a creative way to pare them down to a small number, but yet give the visitors to the site an idea of what happened and how tragic that overall event was, and the miscarriage of justice that occurred. And I mean, repeatedly after these boys, there was evidence to show that they were innocent. Repeatedly, the juries kept finding them guilty, and every ruling was that they be executed, and they were completely innocent. So I thought to myself once, I said, if people don't get emotional about this and this event and what occurred and the positive outcome in terms of Blacks being on juries and Blacks having a right to a fair trial, everyone having a right to a fair trial, they may not have a pulse.
Right, absolutely.
I think, you know how Black men were often referred to as boys.
Right.
And so when I've heard of the Scottsboro boys for some time, but when I saw the photos, it's like, these are boys. These are literally, these are not adult men. These weren't even young men. They were boys. And that probably struck me more than anything, because not having taken a deep dive into the history, just going by, the Scottsboro boys and what happened and all that stuff. It's a great story, but I will say that the people of Decatur have embraced the idea of a museum. They've embraced it. I mean, I don't know if you can say people embrace the story, but it's history and it's what's happened.
Right.
So I've been very, very pleased and happy about the way things are unfolding up there. And I think, and there's and I'll just give some credit to where it's due, a lady named Frances Tate, who's a Decatur native, who's been behind this, who has been promoting this, and who is an artist herself, and will have some of her paintings in the new museum. Has just done a wonderful job. Frances Tate and Gerald from Mainstream Financial. So they've done just a fantastic job with this project and continue to move forward. And they've visited other museums to get some ideas. So,
Thom, you touched on something that I'd like to expand on. When Barbara asked me, what struck me when I got involved in this project, one of the things that struck me was the unity amongst the Black and white community indicator in terms of the board. I had a chance to sit in on an initial meeting to share with them my vision for the site, and Black and white were, they were unified in getting this museum built. And I was very encouraged by that.
That's great.
Good. Very good. Let's get Michael on here for a minute and see what he's got going. Michael, you got questions?
Yes, good morning, Flea. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Michael.
I'll call you Flea and Tom will call you Butch. So
that's fine. Okay.
I just wanted to, first of all, commend you for taking on this project and building the website. And the pictures that you selected thus far, they tell a story in and of themselves. What I wanted to ask you is there going to be any type of documentation or something that tells the story of the 9, how their lives turned out once they were cleared? Because a lot of times when we have things like this, we don't really find out what happened to those people that were harmed once they got out. What type of life did they have? So is that going to be a part of this?
That's a great question, and that's something that I will, in my next conversations with some of the board members, I'll bring that up, Michael, because we can do a timeline with each of the boys to show how things ended up in their lives. Tragically, a number of the boys, I think about 4 or 5, were granted pardons after they had passed away, and only one of the 9 actually received his pardon while being alive, and that pardon came from Governor George Corley Wallace in Alabama. So,
wow.
Let me answer that this way. I think in modern day museums, particularly civil rights museums, if you've been to the one in Montgomery, you'll see that the story continues past the event. And I would be willing to say that as this museum is designed, you will have further information about the boys and their lives and what happened to them. And the other thing that's really key here, and I think that people are really excited about, is the judge's house will be there, and it will become a legal institute because of the historic Supreme Court rulings that came out of this. And so you will have the opportunity to perhaps study some of the judges' train of thought. We will have, there are several colleges in the area up there, to have a legal institute, legal scholars, bring young people in who may be in junior high or high school who have an interest in maybe the legal profession. So there will be several areas devoted to the whole idea of a legal institute as we go. So let's see, where were you? Michael, was that it for you, or you got something else?
Well, go ahead, Barbara. You have something else. I'll come back.
I just wanted to ask, we of course identified the Scottsboro boys. We know who they were, the legal team that was involved. But what about, there were pictures depicting the posses, the people who were after, trying to get to these young men and harm them. Has there been any work done to try to identify those individuals and, provide some type of history on them, why they felt so strongly that they need to, do something outside of the justice system to harm these young people?
That's a great question, Barbara. For a number of the photos, in addition to, I was able to glean some information from a book, Scottsboro Unmasked, which was written by one of the board members, Peggy Allen Towns.
Peggy's been one of our guests on the show.
Yes.
Oh, great. And yeah, she is a resident of Decatur, and her grandmother used to tell her stories about the trials because her grandmother actually attended at least one of the trial events.
Right.
So what we've done with a lot of the photos is we've identified individuals, but to your point, the men with armed guns, I'm trying to get answers. I'm going to be getting with John Allison to find out, because he knows most of the information behind those photos and the people that are in it, to fill that out, so to speak, to answer your question. But yeah, I don't know if those are the armed men, if that was a posse, or if those were federal agents. I don't know. So, but we're looking to get an answer to that.
Let me answer it this way. If this is history, and it's now almost 100-year history, and obviously the people who were standing there with the guns and in a riot type mode were not, history had probably had been kind to them. And so if you were related to them, would you want anybody to know? If you were one of the people that were there,
that is true. That is true. But
would you be coming forward and saying, "Yeah, that was my uncle who was standing there with a shotgun"?
Probably not. Probably not. Now that you put it that way, probably not.
Probably. Peggy's book, Scottsboro Unmasked, is great. It's a great book to read about what happened in Decatur. And again, these are events that happened in Decatur, not necessarily in Scottsboro.
Right.
So,
and one of my favorite photos is when the Supreme Court had ruled that blacks could serve on juries. The lead attorney for the Scottsboro boards, Leibowitz, brought in some of the most prominent blacks in Decatur, lawyers, dentists. I mean, these were just the top people in the community. And there's a picture of Dr. Frank Sykes. He's sitting alone in a chair in the courtroom, and he has this bundle of white paper. And I couldn't figure out, what is that? What does he have? And then in Peggy's book, Scottsboro Boys Unmasked, you learn that that's a list of 112 men that Dr. Sykes felt was qualified to serve on a jury. And despite that, and his testimony and the testimony of others, dozens of other black men who would acknowledge people that they felt could serve on a jury, time after time after time, the jury commission denied blacks to be on the jury for the Scottsboro boys over and over again. They denied it.
Well, and I think as this goes on, we will bring you more information, and then we'll bring in more people who actually have more information than I do. John Allison and some of the people who have become experts, are subject matter experts about this, and Francis Tate, who basically whose idea this has grown from. So it's just been an absolute, it's a wonderful project to work on, and we certainly appreciate Eric taking it on. So thank you, man.
You're more than welcome. It's been a learning experience, but it's been incredibly rewarding. And as the site evolves, I think it's going to be even more informative.
Let's see. Michael, did you have anything else?
Yes, Eric, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to go back and spend a little time. You alluded earlier that in spite of testimony of people recanting their stories and coming forth and saying that the Scottsboro boys did not do anything, but yet and still they kept coming up with the same outcome of them being guilty and should be executed. What evidence did they introduce to combat people coming forward saying this is not what happened in order to come up with those verdicts?
Well, you're dealing, Michael, with 1931 Jim Crow law in Alabama, and you are dealing with the word of 9 black teenagers versus the word of 2 white women. And so the mindset of the jurors and of the people, whites associated with this was that these boys were guilty no matter what. If the women said they were, then they had to be. So,
and if the women said they weren't, they had to be.
Despite all the evidence to the contrary, and even one victim saying they weren't, they still were convicted.
Wow.
So it was a mindset, if you will.
Okay. So in other words, then the white women's word was good when they said the boys had committed the crimes, but when they said, no, that's not right, then their word was no good, as what Thom was saying. That's what basically the deal was. So their minds were made up regardless.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They were looking to set an example.
Okay. Barbara, you got anything else?
Well, Thom, I just wanted to ask, and Butch as well, do we know the date that the museum is expected to open?
No,
at least with the first
I think
phase?
that's a little far out right now.
Okay. Okay.
Phase one, they're working on the house, the building. There's a little bit of work that needs to be done there. They're moving the judge's house from another part of the county, I guess. I don't know exactly where.
Right.
They're going to move it, and there are 2 or 3 locations that they're looking at. And the one location they want to have, I think, is probably the best one. But you know, when you're trying to move a very aged structure,
Right.
and then you've also got to make sure you got all the financial things in place in terms of the land and so on and so forth. It's going to be a while, but we're out in front of it. We think it's a great project. We feel like the people of Decatur are really excited about it, and we're looking forward to it. So
that's great. I'm excited that they will have something in North Alabama that basically start the Civil Rights Trail.
That's a great point, Barbara.
That's a great point. Yeah.
It will be the northernmost point on the Alabama Civil Rights Trail.
Yes.
Which means if people are coming to Alabama to travel the Civil Rights Trail, when they come over into Alabama, into Huntsville, Decatur's right there, and we would be the first stop on the Civil Rights Trail. And according to the tourism people, the Civil Rights Trail and the Civil Rights Museums are the #1 tourist attraction in the state of Alabama.
Wow.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Okay, anybody else got anything else?
I would just like to say thank you to all of our viewers that have sent me some welcome back greetings. I'm glad to be back with y'all, and thank you for reaching out.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we will continue to update the Scottsboro stories. And let me go back to one thing Butch said about the man had a list of doctors and dentists and so on and so forth. In this community where this trail will be, it's called the Old Town community. And it was a community of Black doctors and lawyers and dentists, Black professionals. It was a great community. It is a great community. And so this will revive that community. So, there were, I think it was close to 100 people on that list that they felt could have been capable of serving on juries.
Right.
But
That is correct.
They still weren't chosen. So anybody got anything else? We will continue to revisit this, and Eric will be back and forth and keeping us updated on it. So thank you, Eric. Thank you very much.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Thom.
Okay, let's give him a hand. And I'll comment further and say, if we could get the Sam Cooke music, a change is going to come. It would be awesome with those photos. But as you probably can guess, that is an expensive item to license. So let's move forward. My closing commentary, or as I see it, is from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said that the time is always right to do what is right. And that is how I see it on this February 15th in the year of 2022. And that's our show for today. I want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. Oh, excuse me. Thank Michael and Barbara. Thank our G-list guest, Eric Simmons, who will be visiting us throughout the construction of the Scioto Scottsboro Boys Museum and Legal Institute. I want to thank our sponsors, Best Girl Inc. and Mainstream Financial Group. Thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator, our producer. Thank Sean Jones and her Got a Minute segment. And thank Eric Simmons. Remember to enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.